Hello, my name's Jay. This is a video about climbing and mountaineering and how I got involved, but also how you could get involved too. I originally got involved in climbing because of scouting, and I've kind of always grown up with a love of the outdoors, for my parents, my family, but I didn't actually get involved properly into climbing until I was probably about 16 or 17, when me and my dad started really getting into it, and we also started building up our skills, and also once we got a bit of skills and experience, we got a couple of qualifications, and that led on to actually supporting other scout volunteers and leaders getting involved in climbing as well. I'm now a rock climbing and mountain leader qualified person. That means I can assess people to get scout permits as well. I love the outdoors and I love climbing because it gives you the chance to explore, have an adventure. It also, there's lots of technical skills involved in climbing. People think it's all about adrenaline or really high adventure, high fuel adventure. And actually the reality is climbing's a bit like yoga. It's pretty peaceful a lot of the time. It's quite strenuous as well, so you get that kind of physical kick, but it's also good for your mental health. There's a real process to climbing, and there's a real culture and community around climbing as well, which means that if you go out with a group of climbers, a bit like scouting really, they tend to be pretty easygoing, chilled out people that love nature and love getting outdoors. A couple of bits of kit I thought I'd just introduce you to that you're bound to kind of come across if you're getting into climbing. First one is the harness. That's the kind of waistbanded kind of piece of kit that you see. Really basic for any roped activity when it comes to climbing. What you want to make sure is that it's nice and secure and tight, and it's the right sort of size for you. Really good indicator to see if it's on right is that all the straps appear to be nice and neat and tidy, and nothing's kind of crossed or twisted or knotted. You should be able to slide your hand down as well, your straps, but also not be able to pull a fist up. Something I really should say about all this is that you should absolutely always go out with somebody that is more experienced and capable of teaching you how to do these activities. This is just a bit of a taster, I suppose, a bit of an introduction. Another piece of kit that's vital for any sort of outdoor climbing, I suppose, would be a helmet. This one doesn't fit my big head, but it is quite a good one. You want it to be able to cover a bit of your forehead, but climbing helmet's mostly designed for something to fall from above actually. And it's not really designed for some sort of frontal or back impact. So that's what we're kind of looking out for with a helmet, and it needs to fit nice and snugly and be able to not fall off particularly easily. There's other bits of kit that you might be interested in. One is a carabiner. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and different strengths. You always want to make sure that whatever carabiners you use, they are suitable for climbing. And as I've already said, you need to make sure you're going out with somebody that knows what they're doing. So, but do get yourself familiar with them. This one's a screw gate, and it's actually a HMS type, so it's quite a big one actually. But the idea of a screw gate is that you can lock it, which means that the carabiner doesn't come open accidentally. And if you're ever attaching it to yourself, you always want to click test it to make sure that it's locked. As with climbing, there's a lot of kit involved, and I'll talk to you about the three main different types of climbing that you might come across to start with, but there's an awful lot of kit to get your head around really. Don't worry about that so much just yet if you're just starting out. You know, go with somebody that's experienced and be interested, be curious. It's a whole art form, climbing, so it might be interesting to kind of learn what the different parts are. There's obviously lots of ropes involved in climbing, and lots of different ways of setting up. But one of the best knots you can learn, and this is something you can do with a shoelace, a piece of string, or a piece of rope that you have lying around. That's all you need to learn this knot. The best way to learn knots for me is from YouTube and watching people do it and watching kind of demonstrations of tying this knot. But it's a really simple knot for tying into a rope or to tie a loop. And essentially all you're doing is making a figure of 8 like that, and then you're going to follow it back through again to create a knot to tie into. So all you're going to do is tie a knot in front of you that's a figure of 8, and you're going to thread it through your harness or a belt loop or anything like that if you just want to practice tying it at home. And then you're just going to re-thread the figure of 8 you've already tied. And what you end up with is actually quite a pretty knot. You actually end up with a double figure of 8 like this, that's a secure knot to tie into. And the way to check is, you should be able to see sets of 2 strands. So you can check it by looking at 2 sets, 2 sets, 2 sets. So it should be 3 on this side, flip the knot over, and there should be another 3 sets of 2 strands. And that's a really safe and secure knot to use. Like I said, learn from resources on YouTube or books, however you learn best, and always get somebody that's more experienced to test it out and check it for you. To get into climbing, the kind of main 3 areas are trad climbing or traditional climbing. That's when you take your own gear and you go to a rock face and you climb it. There's lots of maps and well marked up routes. Now, it's probably something you absolutely need to go with somebody that's really experienced to go and do that. It's quite a high risk if you don't know what you're doing. But with an adequate guide, with people that are experienced, it's a really enjoyable activity to do. The other key thing to do, which is probably more accessible, perhaps not at the moment if we're still in lockdown by the time you're watching this video, which is artificial climbing. So you go to an activity centre or some sort of climbing wall where everything's kind of plastic or on wood, and it's man-made kind of artificial surfaces. And the other one as well that you might come across is sports climbing, where it's artificial, where it's natural rock, but actually there's lots of bolts and man-made kind of securings. And then the 3 kind of climbing ones, 3 different climbing styles that you might come across. Another one is bouldering, which is low level. It's low level climbing, but without ropes essentially, and it's really at a low level. You can either do that on an artificial surface, or you could do it naturally on a rock as well. Again, you want to make sure you're going with somebody experienced, because it can, although it's at a low level, it can be extremely risky if you come off and hurt yourself in that way. So, lots of information. My message to you would be to go find a club, find somebody that's also into climbing or more advanced than you in climbing, and give it a go. It's a really brilliant activity to get into, and it can provide a lot of opportunities and a whole community to get involved with. So thank you very much for the video today, for watching the video today, and tune in next time to see what Scoutadelic's up to. Thank you.